The failed coup attempt in Turkey and its aftermath certainly had an impact on the Turkish-American bilateral relations. Turkish government considered the American response not enough, and still it seems they don't see eye to eye on so many issues regarding Fethullah Gülen and his cult, currently considered a terror group in Turkey. Now, for more on this, I'm joined by Paolo von Schirach, who is the president of an independent think tank called the Global Policy Institute here in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for your time. First of all, I'd like to ask you, why was the response so late and in a way so weak? Did the United States not care about what was going on at the time?
Well, I think mostly America didn't understand what was going on. People didn't really understand the intricacies of Turkish politics. They knew very little about the Gülen movement and its grip on certain key strategic elements of the Turkish institutions and society. And I think that there was genuine confusion in Washington, in the Obama administration at that time, as to what was going on and how should America react. And the fact that also it ended so quickly put people off, in a sense. I think there's a combination of ignorance, which is, quite frankly, it's not justifiable when you're talking about the top echelons of the world power, the United States of America, and some genuine degree of confusion.
But 1 year on, there's still so much skepticism. I mean, it's not just a public opinion, but even among officials at the State Department, at the Capitol Hill. Is this acceptable, do you think? Why is there so much skepticism?
Well, I think one thing which I think at this point is not justifiable anymore, that American policymakers and opinion leaders have not fully appreciated the degree, the intensity, I would say, of the popular resistance on the night of the coup against this military insurrection, terrorist attack, whatever you want to call it. I've seen a lot of footage of what happened during that night, and I am personally satisfied and absolutely convinced that the people in Turkey, regardless of political conviction and political affiliation, whether they were with the government or with the opposition, were definitely against the idea of another coup that would put the military in charge, and they wanted to preserve the institutions. I am not sure how this reality, which is a very important reality of citizens who want to protect democracy, has sunk in among the elites and the policymakers here in Washington even a year later.
And I think just like anybody else, you would also agree that this issue will probably not be enough to derail an old, strong alliance. It's a NATO alliance between the two countries. But moving on, what do you think can be a common ground, how Turkey and U.S. should or could act?
Well, look, as somebody who's been working on NATO affairs for many, many, many years, I, for one, and I think many others with a similar background, do recognize that Turkey plays an extremely important role as a key NATO ally. It's been the case for decades now, and of course with what's going on in the region right now, and with the still unsettled Syrian conflict and the Kurdish issue, and Daesh in both in Syria and Iraq, and the upheavals that are sort of convulsing the region, cooperation, strong cooperation between the United States and Turkey is absolutely vital. It is impossible to think how America can be a significant player in the region and in settling the conflicts that we're talking about without active cooperation on the part of Turkey.
And just very briefly, do you think extradition will be possible? And if not, do you think this will pose another big obstacle?
I understand that this is a significant problem that is affecting the bilateral relationship. Of course, as I'm sure you know, and many other people in Turkey by now know, that it's a complicated process. It is not, the President of the United States cannot demand or say to the courts, okay, you have to do this for me. We have independent powers. The judiciary is independent. The matter will be reviewed. I hope it will be reviewed sensibly, and that the evidence, and I know it's quite substantial, that has been produced by the Ministry of Justice and other authorities in Turkey has reached the competent authorities here in the United States, and that the process will be swift. and a decision will be made, and I hope justice will be done.
Thank you very much for your time and perspective. Paolo von Schirach there, that's the president of the Global Policy Institute, an independent think tank based here in Washington, D.C. I think he made it quite clear that the extradition process will be a long uphill battle, but the relations between the two countries is obviously indispensable. So the two sides, I think everybody agrees on, will be working harder to get the bilateral relations on track. But there's still so much they still don't see eye to eye regarding the FETÖ organization and its establishment in the United States.